About the author. David Clarke was born in Oldham, Lancashire, in 1949. During the 1960s, he and his older brother, Michael, became involved in crime, promiscuity, and infamy while living in Aylesbury, Buckinghamshire. Despite growing up in a good home with their parents and younger sister, both brothers turned to a life of crime. In 1967, they were arrested and sentenced to prison for malicious wounding and carrying a firearm without a license. David served his time at Dover Borstal, a young offenders training institute, while Michael was sent to Maidstone Prison. After his release from Dover Borstal in 1968, David was determined to continue his criminal lifestyle, showing no fear, no belief in God, and no respect for society or his family. For the next 3 years, he engaged in a series of undetected crimes. However, his perspective began to change when he met a Christian woman who told him that his way of life was immoral. At that time, David believed religion was for people who could not enjoy life or stand on their own 2 feet. But on the night of January 16, 1970, while under the influence of LSD and experiencing what he described as the horrors, he had a profound spiritual encounter. He later recounted that he was not arrested by the police that night, but rather by Jesus Christ, who spoke to him after he cried out to God for help. David believed that Jesus told him the horrors he was experiencing were nothing compared to the reality of hell. That night, David made a life-changing decision to turn away from his sinful lifestyle and follow Christ to the best of his ability. He immediately began reading the Bible and other Christian literature and started attending various churches. 1 year later, the police visited David, and he voluntarily confessed to 24 crimes that he had committed between his release from Borstal in 1968 and his conversion in 1970. In 1974, after carefully studying Christian doctrines, David joined the Bearton Strict and Particular Baptist Church, located in a small village near Aylesbury. He became convinced that the doctrines of grace, as taught in the Bible, were the foundation of true faith. David later trained as a lecturer at Wolverhampton Polytechnic and began teaching electronics at Luton College of Higher Education. He continued his teaching career for 22 years, working in colleges of higher and further education until 2001. In 1981, the Bearton Church, originally founded in 1831, became a Gospel Standard listed cause. In 1982, David believed he was called by God to preach the gospel. The church officially sent him out to share the message of Christ wherever doors were opened for him. With a desire to reach his old friends, David organized a special preaching meeting at Bearton Chapel in 1983, inviting those from his past life to hear how God had changed him. Providentially, this meeting was recorded and is available on YouTube under the title David Preaching at Bearton Strict and Particular Baptist, 5th of June 1983. Following this event, David faced significant challenges, which eventually led to his secession from the Bearton Church in 1984. He later documented this experience in his book, originally titled The Bearton Crisis, now republished as Let Christian Men Be Men. This story is a full account of David's early life, his conversion from crime to Christ, and his experiences within the Bearton Strict and Particular Baptist Church. It also details his fall and subsequent recovery from a period of open sin, similar to the biblical account of King David, in 1990. Michael Clarke's story. Meanwhile, David's older brother, Michael, remained unaffected by his conversion. In 1995, Michael was arrested in the Philippines and sentenced to 16 years in New Bilibid prison. Remarkably, 30 years after David's conversion, he received news of Michael's own transformation. While in prison, Michael came to a point of desperation and was ultimately convinced that Jesus Christ was the Son of the living God. His conversion was influenced by reading C.S. Lewis' book Mere Christianity. In September 2000, Michael was baptized as a Christian inside New Bilibid prison, using an old 50-gallon U.S. Army oil drum as a makeshift baptismal font. The story continues, detailing how David and Michael worked together inside the prison, ministering to inmates who, like them, had turned from crime to follow Christ. This testimony demonstrates the manifold grace of God, showing how 2 brothers were saved from lives of sin, crime, and immorality through the transforming power of Jesus Christ. A testimony for the gospel. David's life story serves as both a confession and testimony, written for the defense and confirmation of the gospel. He firmly believes that everything that happened to him ultimately served to further the message of Christ. As the Apostle Paul wrote in Philippians 1:7-12, "The things that have happened to me have actually resulted in the advancement of the gospel.